No, I just wanted to stop and restart the recording stream so it'd be easier when I edit them later. Excuse me, everybody, I made a little bit of a boob, and it's easier to acknowledge your mistake and correct it than trying to correct it later. Anyway, Darkcity Show. Darkcity Show, as usual, it's your radio. This is your show. Any kind of topics you want to bring up, please do so. It's only an hour show tonight, so if you do want to get in early. Numbers are, what are the numbers? Dear me, I say it so many times, you'd think I'd have it in my head by now. Outside the UK, plus 44 161 298 0298. Inside the UK, 0161 298 0298. You can Skype us at Bob's Backyard. You can also get onto our website at www.darkcityradio.com. Enter the website and you will go onto the live page. 2 buttons there. One says Skype, big blue button at the bottom. If you hit that, that'll do it all for you if you've got the Skype program set up. And the top button says click here to enter chat. Click that. Make sure you've got hash Bob's Backyard, hash Bob's Backyard in the channel name. Depends on your browser, so just make sure that's in there and click to enter. Where it says web user, you can put whatever you want in. You don't have to be registered. If you've got IRC client, then you can access us via AnonNet. And thanks for the webpage, the chat room, AnonNet. It's most appreciated. I don't mention you people enough. And the channel is, of course, hash Bob's Backyard. So there you go. That's how you can get in touch with us. That's how you can drop us messages and stuff and things like that. If you are in the chat room, Reiki Master, not seen you for a while, mate. Rabbit Pinch, who's just become like our chat god. Become a chat god. Rabbit Pinch, good to see you. Soul Shock, I can see he's active there without actually scrolling up. Well, there's another 29 people in there. So yeah, oh, and Den, hi Den. Is that Den still there? I think so. Very active people in that room currently, so that's good. Another way of getting in touch with us, as I said. Brilliant show we've just had from Dawn's Diorama, every Sunday, following well, I don't know what we're going to call it now. Are we still going to call it the Rick Simpson Show? Ooh, I'll have to work something out there. Of course we are. Rick, going to take some time out. Behind the scenes, we've been telling Rick that that's really important. That he's important, as you all are. We all are important. And I do know from personal experience, sometimes you can put yourself out there for everyone else. And a great man. He's a great man. And I really want to see him get his feet up. And if anybody's been listening, any of the listeners now, I've listened to the Rick Simpson Show, you'll know that I've been telling people that it's $5,000 to shake his hand. Because if the people can afford that kind of money, then they should bloody well pay for shake his hand. He's earned it. But of course, to the likes of Rick and myself and many others on Dark City, it's not all about money. In fact, far from it. That creativity that we feel that divergent thinkers can bring to the whole of societies across the board, regardless of creed or colour or religion. I know that. I know that all great breakthroughs in everything have come through thinking outside the box, not continuing nearly to repeat the same old cycles. So yeah, cracking night for us tonight on Darkcity Radio, as every night is. I normally kind of give a bit of report on a Sunday. It's a bit boring, but we've got into a little bit of a chat. Well, I'm saying it's boring. It's a bit boring for myself. It might not be for yourselves, where we're up to and what's actually going on. Yeah, Rick's taking some time off. He'll be sorely missed. There's no doubt about that. But he's not gone. Rick's not gone. He's taking the time out. He's actually taking his own advice, which is pretty good. It's good advice he gives, and now he's taking some of his own advice. JB's going to be with us, and JB's running Phoenix Tears, basically. He runs his Facebook group and stuff have you, and he's dealt with Rick now for about the last 3 years, if my memory serves me right, maybe a little longer, constantly. He's like the technical side of the internet for Rick. So, vast amount of knowledge, and we'll extract that out of him on Dark City over the next few weeks, and share that with you live on air. We do want to keep things as live as we possibly can. We were helped out immensely last week. Some of you were around. I know Lee's just dropped back in. He was around for it. Fair play, Lee. I didn't make it. My apologies to all. I went for an hour's sleep and woke up 7 hours later. So yes, but we were joined one of the Improv Duke shows through Personal Navigation, which is normally on a Thursday night. Well, it kind of was really. Well, it was early Friday morning actually. Early Friday morning. Now, Vosto, who produces pretty much most of Friday, he just walked straight into it. And a cracking show they had. Although I kind of missed it, like I said, apologies there, I slept through it. I got up in the morning, the station was running, there was nothing to do, they hadn't left beer cans everywhere, they hadn't filled up all, they cleaned up after, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. When that kind of thing happens, we go from strength to strength. We really do. We really do. So brilliant, brilliant from, Dean Clifford. Dean Clifford. That man's name keeps jumping in and out of my head. That was absolutely wonderful. To have that. Improv Duke shows. We never know what's going to happen on Dark City. I mean, earlier on in the week, I mentioned Vosto, on Vosto's show. He's joined by, completely, random, we don't plan any of this, by Danny Shine. Now, Vosto didn't even know who Danny Shine was. Really cool. Where else on earth do you get people like that dropping in? So I like that side of it. I like the man on the street, Mark Mann. Mark, where are you, brother? We miss you. Mark's taking a little bit of time out. So good on you, Mark. I've messages got through to me in the ether. So yeah, I'll look forward to hearing from Mark pretty soon. Callie and Prajna, they went to the horse fair. They didn't go to the Bilderberg meeting, as they said they were going to do. They did tell us they weren't going to do it, and they went to the name slipped my mind now, but it's a big horse fair, the Gypsy Fair, and there was some stuff going on there. Now, they'll be back with us pretty soon. Had a problem with his charger for his laptop. They have been in touch with us. Everything's fine. We're hoping to see them.
It's Appleby Horse Fair.
Appleby, thank you, Sarah Crew, lady. Appleby Horse Fair, that's where they went to. And yeah, they had pretty good time. They said they met with a lot of nice people. They'll give us a report on that. I'm sure they will when they get back onto the internet. Look, we just lost our little friend in the corner. Look. So, what more can I tell you? Such a lot's going on. It is such a lot going on. Right, the servers, you might notice, it's not been as bad. Things seem to have been updated. We have to do things one stage at a time because, as you know, we are actually running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So yeah, they seem to be getting better. Now, that's not all down to what we do here at Dark City. That has also got a lot to do with all the other people who work for Dark City, in a sense, like even Skype, owned by one of the corporate demons, even they're kind of helping us out. And it just spins me back round this to this light and this dark, this ever-going power struggle that we seem to have between. I don't know where it jumps from good and evil, light and dark. You know, when did the dark become bad? I get the analogies as just made, actually, by Mark. I mean, a lot clicked straight away with me. Like, you know, low vibrational energies. Darker energies being a lower vibration, so forth. And lighter energies being a so-called higher vibration. Well, if you actually just have a look at dimensions and the way things work, vibration, I suppose, yes, resonant fields and so forth. But light resonating higher than light and dark being, it just doesn't kind of antiquate. It's very polarity. It's not really dimensionally. It's not, and definitely not multidimensionally, as is being suggested. So I don't see where we suddenly jump to dark being evil. That, to me, I have a big issue. You see, as people who know myself, you know, I was big into plants, aquaponics, hydroponics, and hemp and various other things. And the things you learn, you see, that plants actually grow in the dark. And people will go, oh, what do you mean? They don't grow in the dark. It's photosynthesis and the light shine. No, they actually get bigger in the dark. Photosynthesis takes place in the light, of course, where air, the oxygen and CO2 and so forth, you know, the air, the environment, is actually, with light through photosynthesis, is turned into liquid. It becomes a liquid, and then it crystallizes in the dark, becoming the platelets, and that's where your plant grows. It's really weird. Now, of course, plants do grow in the day. You've all seen the photographic pictures of them, you know, the rapid function of them. But the majority of the plant growth, where it actually really does its work, is in the dark. And without the dark, none of them would work. There is a few plants on Earth that work the other way around. Mushrooms are like one of them. You know, they kind of work the other way. But light and dark, it's really important. People who are growing in controlled environments, they don't say light and dark. It isn't. It's light and blackout. Blackout. Complete blackout. Now, what's weird about this? For me, anyway, and bear with me here if I'm jumping about a bit, it'll kind of come together in a way. My body, in the sun, produces, like, stuff that, you know, they say it produces vitamin B1. But vitamin B1 isn't actually produced by the body, again, in the light. It's actually produced in the dark. And I bumped into a mate of mine on today. 3D, Atlantis 3D, did a radio station. I'll just keep him under that name at the moment. A really good interviewer, and we've actually, in the early days, played a few of his shows in the early Darkcity, and I've still got them, and I will play them again, because a lot of what he's discussing with people or interviewing with people is still very relevant to what's been being said and done. And that's why I kind of got this light and the dark thing in my head. And then again tonight with Mark Devlin, that reference to things, I could follow it, and then there seems to be this fear isn't your friend, you know. Fear's my friend, and fear's been a good trusted guide for me for a while. Of course, once you're in fear and you're being ruled by fear, that's something completely different, you know. It really is. The relationship you are in with this energy. To me, that works. Now, I'm not saying that works for everyone else, but to me, it's the relationship that I'm in, rather than what is being done by others. The relation I'm in with the so-called others. So, light and the dark. For me, it's a relationship. Vostok, we've even got a tune, you know. Now, the words of it, there is no space between the light and the dark, between dawn and dusk, you know. He makes this point, and it's, I should play it, actually. I should play it. But, yeah, it keeps coming to me. It keeps coming to me. It keeps coming that the light and the dark are not in conflict. Light and dark. You know, and it would appear that neither are good or evil. If you want to go down the religious perspective, that the dark is evil and there's something going to get you. You know? You go in the woods. You go for a woods, right? You go out through any woods in daylight. You walk through and listen. Just listen. And there's creaks and cracks and groans and moans and rustlings and... You go there in the night and listen to exactly the same thing. You'll get spooked out. There's something in the woods and it's going to get... There's nothing... Hang on a minute. There's nothing more blue in the woods in the days than there is in the night. It's just, it seems to be we've been trained to fear the dark. To fear the dark. I keep seeing it, I keep hearing it. Could just be a rabbit hole, of course, that I've dropped down. Really could. Won't be the first. I don't think it'll be the last. You know, what is this kind of conflict? This ongoing conflict between the so-called light and dark. A bit weird, really. We called it Dark City. Of course, many people realise it actually is Darkcity Radio. And when we set off, I'll freely admit, and I have done many times before, we didn't know we'd be here. I didn't know this is what we were doing. I really didn't. I was pretty much in the dark compared to what's happening now. In fact, if you would have told me the number of people that have been through the station and that there'd be the people tuning in the hour right now, I probably wouldn't have done it. I feel more comfortable in myself being more honest about the 22 people actually live on our stream. How many of you are recasting that? I do not know. But I'd sooner be talking to the 21 people than what does that work out? 39,000 or something, 41,000 or something silly. You know, because that really spooks me out. It just really spooks me out. I don't think I could do that number of people live. You know, the energy of it. Again, the energy of it. If you've done performance or you've been on stage or you've done anything like that, there is an energy. You know, many people notice it afterwards or they run up to it. Many of us talk to one another on a daily basis. But when it comes to going onto the radio and doing it live, and there's people listening, the nerves can begin to build up. The tension can begin to build. Sometimes people just clam right up. Other people, they get very excited and they rush away. And remember, we're all amateurs. We do this because we can. Because we love it. Amateur for the love of. So yeah, when you meet up with your heroes, you get excited. I get excited. Yeah, I do. And you know, I'm getting the opportunity to actually work with them, to sit alongside them, and seek their counsel. So yeah, I'm really, really buzzed up. The third server is kind of limping, and eventually it broke, and it's lying in pieces in my front room. So yeah, I'm just waiting for the new mines to arrive. The last mine's pretty much. There was a couple out there still plugging away. Thank you to you people who are still mining for Darkcity, but our mines have pretty much destroyed them. Of course, I can still put this machine on here, and I do when I can. But that is basically how we've managed to get updated so fast. All the YouTube's now up to date up until yesterday, and you will find that these shows from tonight should be up there but by dinner time tomorrow, and we'll be replaying on the radio. Now look, once the website's sorted out, I'm not going to be in such a big rush to put those up on YouTube. We really want to try and keep as much in-house as we can. Stay away from these merchandising demons. In the last show again, Mark, I know Rick's touched on it, we've all touched on it here at Dark City. they're doing it for the money. They really are doing it for the money. I don't know if they become demonic, emotional, lost souls. I don't know. I really do not know. Maybe I was once there. I did, and if that was the case, I didn't know neither. So I ain't gonna point my fingers at people that I don't know. Hey, well, yeah, Mika, you've got a 1 in the room. Have you got something you want to say, bro? Please do. I really need to get a drink.
Yeah, I'm just still learning how the show operates. I don't want to do anything inappropriate. But yeah, 1. Because you've said, unless you wish to go get a drink or something, but like you say, you've had good and bad in your mind. And I recently completed my grade 12. I don't know what to think about that. I'm sure if I operated within that, then yeah, I'd be like, oh, this has great significance for my life, but I don't really feel that sincerely. But my last class was a philosophy class, and the teacher who did it was a history teacher, and he hadn't taught it before. So he just did it really, and his name was Scott, and he was a really good guy, and he just left it really open. And there was one part, or one project we got, was a scenario of a man talking to I think it was a little girl, but basically a 4-year-old, telling her, sorry if the water is kind of loud in the back, I don't quite know, but telling her why it's important to be good and not bad. And she asks you why, asks you why. And the project was supposed to be your discussion with her on why it's good to be bad, or why it's good to be good, and why, and what bad is. Sorry, it's clearing my throat. And I ended up hijacking the project because I do not know what good and bad are. And I wondered where the English of good and bad, yeah, if the dogs are bad too, tell me. But where did the English of good and bad come from? And I wonder if it is a Christian concept. And the idea of good and bad, I find I've been able to link with 2 other kind of suppressive things our society does. The first is of illness, because I know that the mainstream medical community does not have any interest in causes. Or at least it doesn't, actually I don't know, but it only seems, or it has tunnel vision for symptoms. And it only aims to treat and suppress symptoms. Yeah. But the thing is that the symptoms the causes and symptoms are linked. If you don't got the cause, it's like constantly mopping up a constantly running faucet. And the second thing was of psychiatry, or maybe psychology, modern therapy, and how it treats behavior, or it aims to suppress behavior, or treat behavior, instead of looking at what it is that might be motivating people to certain types of behavior. And, but yeah, I linked the good and bad.
Yeah, brilliant, Mika. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
Socially acceptable. What's socially acceptable seems to have a massive play on this. What's considered to be socially acceptable would be considered to be normal. I mean, and so I don't know, man. But I would actually suspect fully. I really would. I wouldn't. I couldn't put up an argument against this being religious in its nature, the good or bad. I mean, I suppose prior to that, it would have been based on food. You know, eat, don't eat, maybe. You know, do that, you'll get hurt. Do that, you won't get hurt. You know, it wouldn't have been something external. It would have been something which would have been based upon our personal action rather than the actions of others. Rather than pointing our finger outside and saying those people are bad over there, it'd be like, who are we, rather than who are they? So I suspect in that, looking at it that way, then it is religious. It would be religious. Like I say, my head works a bit weird, me.
Yeah. Right. I remember my main point. I was trying to remember why I pointed out those three things. I was like, what was I saying that again? That, in the same sense that, like, if you fill your body with shit, it is a healthy... This is like, I was watching a herbalist called Tim Morrow, and he said that like cancer or illness is a healthy result, is a healthy symptom of what we might be like, what might be of something mal-affecting us or whatever. And so, like, if you eat constantly eating processed food, vegetable oil, fucking crap, you're going to get sick. That symptom isn't the problem, it's what we're doing. In the same sense, anger, just to the things like addiction. Our society has a very perverse and dehumanizing perspective of addiction, where these things are like, if... Oh, I lost my train of thought again. But, yeah.
It happens. Keep breathing, it'll come back.
Yeah. But, like... Yeah, I completely lost it. Oh, well. But, yeah, like, fucking... good and bad are...
Well, yeah, man, for me, they've been presented to us as two opposing forces.
Yeah.
And I see that...
results.
Say again?
Oh, they're results. They're results of, of behavior, attitudes, and symptoms, or things that we might be doing, you know?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's the outcome of something. I suppose it's where we draw that baseline, isn't it? So for me, a good thing to do is something that doesn't create waste. Okay? It doesn't kind of screw something up. Now, you know, in the bigger circles, I mean, it would appear, now, no, it wasn't Max, Kurt Rutter, he mentioned this the other day was that on Dawn's show? I think it was on Dawn's show. About, it was last week, about nature or our environment being like a giant supercomputer. It's almost we've kind of got the audacity to think we can mess with it and that, you know, and that we can create waste. And I mean, I've been in that mindset myself where I'm looking at it and thinking, let this system run. The aquaponics is a brilliant example how it's not creating any waste. It creates more out. You get more out than what you put in. It does kind of mimic nature, if you like. It's a mimic, but it doesn't actually take anything from the environment. It actually creates in the environment and adds to it. But am I of the same mindset that I'm trying to make it better? Where really this giant supercomputer we're kind of inside, just looking at it from that perspective, is actually giant supercomputer, and it knows all about us and what we're capable of doing and what we're not capable of doing, and we're often unwilling or unknowing parties within that. That would appear to be the dark. That when we're unknowing or unwilling in it, it appears to be what we consider to be dark. When we've done things and then the events to us have become traumatic.
Yeah, Alan Watts, as far as like a supercomputer we think we can mess with, he said something that was it's the name of the video is there's a full one of it on Vimeo, and it's Alan Watts, A Conversation with Myself. And in it, how did you describe it, or how did he start it? He says, in order to, I'm probably not starting this correctly, but I'll get to the point. He says, in order to get educated, we have to read miles and miles of print. And in order to get educated, it takes us like 20, 30 years or more. And he says, changes happen, or changes occur too rapidly for that. And he says, we're greatly assisted by the rapidity of the computer, but it still runs on a track. And he says, I don't know if I said this before, but he says we have arguably one-track minds in a many or multiple-tracked universe. Yeah. And there was something about that. I'm probably missing something, but it's just having one-track minds in a multi-tracked universe. When you consider the diversity that life shows itself, and man just fucking paves and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, totally with you on that. Totally with you. I've used the analogy of the visible light spectrum, you know. We're seeing a very tiny part, and what we see, we tend to govern as being more important than anything else. And that what moves in that what we see is even more important to us than everything else, and so on and so on. Till eventually we're looking at a real tiny amount of what is actually available. I don't see how that is actually a problem. I think eventually there's like a cascade. Once you've focused onto something for so long, onto a single thing, the rest of it can become visible to you, but often only in a flash, and people can shake it off. Through forms of meditation and some psychotropics, I can't deny it, but for me, you ended up doing the meditation. You end up doing the meditation after the psychotropics. It's alright doing the meditation and then do the psychotropics, because otherwise you'll tend to blame it on the so-called drug, in big inverted commas. Okay. So yeah, if it is a consciousness thing you're going to do, then do it with your consciousness. There are stimulants, of course, that can make that easiher.
It would be kind of silly to blame it on the drug, because it's a tool as any tool, and it doesn't work without a human as a part of the equation.
From my own perspective, one of the first things I did was magic mushrooms, the psilocybin mushroom, dried. I didn't know the quantities, and I took an awful lot. I did more than the heroic dose. And, it kind of freaked me out a little bit for a while. And I thought what had happened to me, on that period was I'd had a hallucination, and it was all about the drugs. I had no knowledge of things like we have now with DMT and how it exists in things, and this can be used to communicate with. You know, this was kind of hocus-pocus mumbo-jumbo stuff then. I had no knowledge of it. And the people that did were considered to be completely moon-batted out there, you know, completely gone. We have advanced in a lot of ways. But again, for me, the clarity of it all has come through experience, rather than the stimulus. It's the experience of knowing that it's me who's triggering it. I'm using my surroundings to trigger myself, to put my consciousness into various different positions. And that although I can be affected by outside influences, predominantly, finite, it is down to my presence. My presence here in the moment, that is the source of it, you could say. So yeah, the light and the dark. I have had a really good point, actually, in text from Jabba, and he says the roots are always in the dark, which is quite true.
Nice.
Yeah. So there is a natural imbalance, isn't there? And this is kind of where I was going with this. The natural imbalance. It's not balanced. I hear a lot of people try to say, oh, we must be balanced. Well, you'd have to be imbalanced first, wouldn't you? And I actually have thought for a while, this isn't about becoming balanced. It's almost the word in itself. It is implying something. Because it isn't fair. The game isn't fair. That would be to be nearer the truth. There are certain people playing with rules. The so-called rules have got that.
Rules.
Yeah, they've got that confused on me.
Different shapes. If you look at the diversity of cultures that people have kind of adapted to, the diversity of environments that people operate in, from the most crude to the most whatever the fuck we're trying to get to.
Yeah, totally, man. But another rabbit hole, definitely, the diversity of the environments that we do actually live in as a species. It's phenomenal. There don't seem to be, I don't know, like I say, rules. Some people live by rules. Other people don't. They don't. And the people that don't have rules, the ones, they tend to, well, they're outlaws. It's another way of saying it. They're outlaws. Now, they're not bad people. That doesn't mean if you're an outlaw, you go robbing and stealing and you know, looting the local town. No, that's not what it means. It means you're free of rules. You know, it's a good thing if we want to go into the good and bad scenario. It is a higher frequency of energy, which I dispute all that, of course. I'm joking a little.
I can agree with what you're saying, though, as far as, well, the word outlaw, I can, especially in modern times, seems to have particular significance. But there's a good quote. I can't remember who it was from, but it was like, the reasonable man does not need the law, and the crook will always find a way around it. Something like that. That's a nice quote.
Yeah, I don't know who actually said if the law worked, there'd be no criminals. It's quite true. The law doesn't work. You see, there are those people who do rob and murder and steal. And they're not governed by the law. You know, they're really not. And so, you know, light and dark, good and evil. It's a bit of a con, I reckon. A little bit of a con. The dark doesn't seem to hurt anybody, but we seem to be fearful of it. Okay? And then, in that sense, then fear could become your friend rather than being ruled by it and frozen in fear. You know? I think there's something to learn there. Lee, are you jump in, bro?
Sorry, just wanted to add about the outlaw thing. Well, that goes back to old historic common law. And it used to be the fact is the original law, ancient old law, believe it or not, was compensation laws. You know, if you caused damage to somebody, you pay for the damage. And a lot of the times, if people refused to, say, let's say somebody was working on their farm and they lost a leg, and for losing a leg, there'd be prices, a price list set in the courts and everything. And for loss of a leg was X amount. If they refused to pay that, they became an outlaw. They didn't get punished and sent to jail or as such. They became an outlaw, and that basically meant that they had no protection under the law. So if they were walking along the street and somebody wanted to take them as a slave, they could do, because they had no protection under the law. And that's what an outlaw was. Somebody that had been punished under law and refused to take the punishment.
Cool, I'm an outlaw. Because I refuse to be punished for anybody. For something we haven't done. I know, brilliantly.
There's more things, something that they had done, and they refused to some things, if they cost the life of somebody, if they killed somebody, for example, they'd normally be asked to replace the place of the son for the mother, and they'd have to provide, look after them when they become old and all that crap, as a son would. And that was their punishment, to replace the son that they killed.
Yeah, well, that seems kind of quite a just way of doing things, I suppose. Yeah, what I was getting at, and thanks for that, but what I was getting at is this conflict again between the people who are so-called lawless and the ones who are law-abiding. This is, again, it seems to be a minority. And when we look at the court systems and the governments and stuff, they're not playing by the rules. They don't play by the rules. We hear people talk about these elite groups and stuff. Well, they don't play by the rules.
Kind of a rigged game when they get to make the rules.
Yeah, they do. They do get to make the rules. So yeah, good and evil, light and dark. Has there been some kind of confusion here? There doesn't seem to be anything to fear in the dark from what we can grasp here amongst the people who are around us. We've had some brilliant analogies. I mean, I do like the one regarding the roots, that the root is actually always in the dark. And, you know, if you look a lot at stuff that they'll say that the root of it is you know, that's where if you want to find the knowledge, you know, then it's the root of it there you need to go. And of course, if you want to kill it, then it's also the root where you'd need to strike, rather than the head of it, you know. Again, looking at it from the plant kingdom. So, us being very similar to the plants in the way that our body produces minerals and through sunlight and how it benefits us and so forth, we can't do without the dark. And they seem to be not in conflict, you know. There is no space between light and dark. There is no space between it. One does transcend perfectly into the other without resistance. You see, to me, it's not being balanced that's important. It's not really being centered. It's you, as the individuals we all are, individuals experiencing this very moment right now, and that won't matter whenever you hear it. But for those who are hearing it right now, it's up to each and every single one of us to feel right about ourselves. To feel good about you. Feel good about yourself. What are you doing? Feel good in your body. And if you don't feel good in that body, change. It's really easy to do. Really easy to do. Again, if you've got the confusion between darkness is scary and fear is something that's going to come and get you, you know, rather than fear something that says, whoa, step back. Whoa, it missed me. Thank you. That should be the relationships. So often it's the relationship that we are into with energies. The position that I'm in. The way I take it or don't. Rather than the way it's been sent. It's more how I receive it than how others send it. In that mindset, it gives us, or it gives myself, like I say, this is, I can't speak for anyone but me, but it gives me that bit of time, if I am going to react to something, to choose, to actually make a choice. If my mind's already in conflict, then I'm often going to react in conflict. If my mind's in fear, and I don't know that, of course, the same with conflict, then that's how I'm going to react or act. I'm going to act in fear. I'm going to act in conflict. And that is often the way that I'll come across to other people. Now, of course, it's their responsibility, as it's my responsibility, to take it the right way. Now, you'll often see this with children.
Ah, there is a very poignant point.
You often see this with children.
Their responsibility.
You often see this with.
Take it the way you mean it, and actually, it's not. It's your responsibility to control how you mean it, and every other individual, it's their responsibility to how they take it, and that's two very different things. Very, very different things.
Maybe you could argue there's a constant relationship between the self and the other.
I thought we'd already pointed that out. Excuse me.
Well, sorry, Paul, I've butted in late, as you know, and I'm just catching on the tail ends of what you're talking about. But I felt that was, something that needed to be dug out the ground, really. That each of us can only affect what's in our own head, and we can't affect what's in anyone else's.
Exactly. That's why it's more important the way you take what you've heard and how you react to it, to know where you've reacted from, to know where you've come from with your reaction. And that's yeah. Rather than so it's the way that I take it. If somebody says something to me like, "You're full of shit, Bob," it's the way I take it. I've been told loads of times, "You're crazy. You're crazy." And now I put my hands together and I go, "Thank you." And people say, "Why did you say that?" I said, "Well, I always like to acknowledge a compliment."
It absolutely is. That's the crucial thing about it, because it's their interpretation of you, not your interpretation of you.
Well, again, it's the way I take it. I'm not putting any responsibility onto another person. I don't judge them for their word. It is my own word. That is my living affirmation. My words are not about anyone else. They're about me, my experience, and the interactions of my brothers and sisters, as I call them now, on Dark City. And that's what it's about. I've moved in my consciousness, and that's affected me in my physical life and everything else. For me, I am the experiment. I am the one that is moving me along. Now, some will go, "Oh, well, I is in the centre of lie, and lie leads to," and so forth. But I would say that also the one is also a singularity, which is the source, not a polarity. We do live in a multitude of dimensions simultaneously, of course. Most of us aren't physically aware of this. Some people are incredibly aware of it. But if we're coming from the perspective of light and dark and then we're going to misjudge it, and we're going to make a few mistakes. So I feel it's, for me anyway, and as I said earlier, this is not going to work for everyone. But for me, it's where I'm coming from and the way I take it, the way I receive it, and the way I send it, whatever it is. That's up to me. Nobody else. No one else. That's my business. No one can take that away from me. Really. I mean, you can be eluded and deluded and driven into all sorts of demands, but it's still right in the moment, right now. Each and every one of us has got the power to change, to stop, and to do that, to manipulate ourselves into any position that we choose.
And the bottom line is responsibility, isn't it?
For what, Bob?
Yourself.
You're plugged into a massive supercomputer called nature.
Yeah, but you're still responsible for your own self, your own actions, and that's it. There isn't anything else.
Well, if that's the way you choose to take it, then of course that would be perfect and right for you, Bob. And of course others could choose to take it wherever they want. Can you get it? Choose? Is it really a choice when we've been driven into a position of demand already when we started? Is that really a real choice?
Well, what I don't was the point of it not being a demand. It was something that I found.
What?
I found it. It wasn't a demand at all.
What excuse me, what did you find?
That I was responsible.
Right, well, therefore you are responsible, aren't you? But, you know, maybe others knew that you were responsible all along.
But they couldn't tell me I was.
Yeah, but,
They had no place in doing that. I had to find it for myself, as each of us does.
No, Bob. I would repute that immediately. You have no right to say at all that everyone and each of us must follow your path. That was your path. That's what.
That isn't what I said.
I don't know if he's insinuating
That
that he has a
is
path.
not what I said. What I said was that each of us
Yes.
has to find our responsible path.
I don't need to find a responsible path. I'm already responsible, thank you. I always have been.
Take, like, maybe an understanding of something. Everybody has to, or like, what would be an example? Maybe law. Your understanding that you've come across of law. It's arguable that every single person has to come about their own, or has to understand that for themselves, and maybe the same thing with responsibility, if I said that right. And without that, or understand, or like, without understanding it for themselves, or something. If you got my point,
Yeah, well, understanding is a bit of a tricky one, isn't it? With only a few seconds to go. But that was the Dark City Show. I do believe we have Zach and What Army coming very shortly in a few moments. So I shall leave you and the crew. Do you want to shout good night or anything? Good night, everybody. That was the Dark City. Thanks for joining us.
Good night, guys.
Very nice.
The rest of them are sleeping.
God damn it! Hi, it's Rupert, and when my homosexual tendencies are at their height, I like to listen to the Dark City, because Barbara makes me feel pretty.
Tune in, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Dark City Radio, every evening, every afternoon, every morning, in fact, every moment of every day. There is chat, laughter, music, and excitement like you wouldn't believe on
Dark City Radio.
And he did this all on a waiter's salary, which practically nothing after taxes and drugs. I have to channel the spirit.